Talk Business Arkansas is brought to you by the Arkansas Farm Bureau, the Arkansas State Chamber of Commerce and Associated Industries of Arkansas, the Electric Cooperatives of Arkansas, Noble Strategies, the Arkansas Healthcare Association, and Delta Trust and Bank.
I'm Roby Brock. Welcome to today's Talk Business Arkansas update. A lot happening on the business and political fronts as the legislature reconvenes. Let's start first with business news. AT&T will buy the Alltel brand from Allied Wireless, which has been operating a number of U.S. rural markets from Little Rock. The $780 million deal is more than triple what Allied paid for the properties after regulators mandated the divestiture in the wake of the big $28 billion Alltel Verizon deal in 2009. Now, the buyout is subject to regulatory approval and is likely to have a big impact on the 270 Alltel employees currently in Little Rock. We'll have developments on this story on our website at talkbusinessarkansas.com. 2 weeks ago, Walmart announced plans to boost domestic spending and growth. Today, the Bentonville-based retail giant said it plans to add 37 supercenters and will expand its distribution network in Canada. The plans amount to an investment of about $450 million. It will include construction of new stores, expansion and remodeling of existing stores, and possible relocations of current outlets. Finally, it got a little buried over the weekend, but the El Dorado Promise Scholarship Program released results of a new study that show the Promise has had a positive effect on raising junior high students' test scores. The study, conducted by the University of Arkansas, showed that test scores were about the same in the 3rd through 6th grades, but 7th grade scores at El Dorado were higher, and El Dorado 8th graders outscored their comparison schools in math and literacy. And you can read more on these stories at our website at talkbusinessarkansas.com, and we'll keep you up with late-breaking stories as well on the business and political fronts. When we come back, we're going to take a look at the GOP legislative agenda here at the state capitol. Some of the bills have been filed and are starting to move through the process. Do the Democrats have a competing agenda? We'll find out right after this.
I don't think it's going to be an easy conversation because they are very strong-willed. I think it's going to be important to us that we know that you're somewhere in a facility that looks after you, has compassion, has care, and you respect it. I mean, I'd love to look after them, I'd love to be able to take care of them, but I don't think I could. That'd be a wrong choice on my part.
Arkansas's skilled nursing and assisted living centers provide quality care for our seniors.
Farm Bureau helps protect its members in more ways than you might think. They've always been the voice of agriculture in Arkansas, working on behalf of folks like me when nobody else would. And Farm Bureau stands for the values that Arkansas families care about. They've protected my right to farm and make a living, which helps everybody who likes food on the table. You know what they say, Arkansas counts on agriculture, and agriculture counts on Farm Bureau.
The Arkansas State Chamber of Commerce and Associated Industries of Arkansas. The State Chamber AIA is the leading voice for business at the state capitol and serves as the primary business advocate on all issues affecting Arkansas employers. Our mission is to promote a pro-business, free enterprise agenda and prevent anti-business legislation, regulations, and rules. Now more than ever, business matters. Learn more at arkansasstatechamber.com.
We've reported on several occasions that the now GOP majorities in the Arkansas House and the Arkansas Senate plan to move forward with a legislative agenda called the Simple Plan. It calls for lower taxes, less regulation, some pro-life and anti-abortion measures, as well as some other tax cut bills. Well, where does that agenda stand today? A couple of bills have been filed. Let's run through some of the highlights. Senate Bill 2 is a voter ID bill. It requires for voter IDs. There is the pain-capable unborn child protection law, can be found in House Bill 1037. An effort to create a public charter school commission, House Bill 1040. And House Bill 1041 is a cap on spending growth tied to the state's gross domestic product. Now, the Beebe administration has expressed some concerns about that bill. Speaker Carter commented in his daily debriefing today that he thought there would be some discussions and could be some potential changes to that bill. And House Bill 1043 is a whistleblower reward fund for state employees. That's another part of the Simple Plan package. And this week and next, you can expect to see some movement on some of those key pieces of legislation. Now, as I indicated earlier, the Beebe administration has raised some concerns with at least one of those bills and possibly a few more. We'll find out in the next couple of weeks whether or not some of those differences can be worked out. If not, the Republicans do hold the majorities in both the House and the Senate. They could pass those bills through. The governor could veto those bills. And there is still the simple majority that the Republicans hold in both the House and the Senate to override a gubernatorial veto. Will it digress to that? We'll find out. That could certainly be an end to the bipartisanship tone that we've heard in the first week or two of this legislative session. Now, we've talked about the Republican legislative agenda. What do the Democrats have in store? House Minority Leader Representative Greg Leding of Fayetteville joins me after this word from our sponsors to discuss. I'm Roby Brock. This is Talk Business.
Noble Strategies is a bipartisan state and federal government affairs firm with a successful track record of providing effective advocacy for business, government, and nonprofit entities. Noble Strategies provides service in areas such as lobbying, public affairs, trade association management, and marketing campaigns. Learn more at noblestrat.com.
I was looking for a bank that could best protect my finances.
That shared my passion for my business's potential.
A bank that offered investment expertise,
lending support, insurance guidance.
A bank that delivered full financial support.
That's how I found True Balance.
True Balance.
From my bank.
From my bank.
Delta Trust and Bank, the expertise to meet all your financial needs.
One of the real advantages of electric cooperatives membership is having a voice in our state's energy future.
Not a week goes by without important energy issues making headlines. These are issues that need to be discussed. And you should know that as policies are being developed, the cooperatives are looking out for our members, advocating what's best for you.
We are your friends and neighbors.
We are your local electric company.
The Electric Cooperatives.
We are Arkansas.
Joined now by Representative Greg Leding, a Democrat from Fayetteville. He is the House Minority Leader, and that is a phrase that has not been uttered about a Democrat in over 138 years. Does that strike you as odd that you're the House Minority Leader?
It took a little getting used to. I still had some colleagues from last term that still kind of tripped up over Majority Leader, and I prefer to say Democratic Leader, but it's fine.
That's good. Well, let's talk a little bit about what you guys have in terms of your legislative agenda in this 89th General Assembly. We've seen some details from the Republicans. They have put forth a simple plan, which has some tenets that they subscribe to. We're seeing some legislation filed on that part. I want to come back and ask you about that specifically, but first of all, what are the Democrats going to do in terms of putting forward an agenda?
We're going to carry forward the commitments that we campaigned on. We know that jobs in our economy continue to be the most important issue to Arkansans. Education continues to be an incredibly important issue. So we're going to work to strengthen our schools. We've made a lot of progress in that area in the last several years, but we know we still have some work to do. We know that healthcare is an area where Arkansas has actually received some national praise in terms of the innovation, like with the Payment Improvement Initiative that we've seen, with the fact that we went from having no trauma system to an incredible trauma system in the span of just a couple of years. But we know that we lead the nation in stroke mortality. We know that we have an obesity problem. So that'll continue to be a priority for us. We know that obviously Medicaid is going to be one of the major issues of this session. But then also government issues. I think government gets a bad rap. And we are also, we're often labeled as the party of big government, which is absolutely not true. But we do believe in a strong government that's able to take care of its people and pay its bills. And I think Democrats have historically been, in Arkansas, the party of fiscal discipline. But we want to address ethics issues going forward in this session.
Will we see specific legislation come forth on education, on ethics, on some of this government being responsible? Or are you talking about some status quo that you want to protect changes from being made to?
I think we'll see some of both. I think we have done a great job of keeping the state's fiscal house in order. So there are going to be certain things that we're going to protect.
Give me some examples.
We have some problems with, I believe it's House Bill 1041. It was
Right.
Representative Bruce Westerman. We know that the governor and DFNA have some problems with that bill. We're kind of uncomfortable with that. We do have some colleagues who are working on some ethics legislation, and I think you're going to see some bipartisan legislation there. I don't think that's going to be one side or the other.
But you said some of it will be defense as well, so.
There will be some defensive, but we know that we spent a lot of the 88th General Assembly on defense, and we do want to play more offense this time.
You want to tip your hand a bit as to what might come forward in terms of being proactive on that front?
I think you're going to see some legislation aimed to really help and strengthen Arkansas families. We know that even though Arkansas wasn't hurt as badly as many states with the recent economic downturn, we still took a hit. And we know that we're still struggling a little bit. So I think you're going to see some bills aimed to help families and working families. Representative Butch Wilkins has already put out there, I don't believe he's filed it yet, but a bill to raise the minimum wage. I know Representative Jim Nichols, for him, working on Kansans are a top priority, and this is his last term. They're going to continue to be a top priority for him. So I think you're going to see a few bills from him. But we'll have more specifics.
One of the things that the Republicans have talked about doing, and they are in the majority, so we have to kind of put it in that context, income tax reform. Charlie Collins, one of your colleagues from Fayetteville, is going to be leading the Revenue and Tax Committee, where they have a supermajority on that committee. Do you see problems with creating a middle income tax bracket where there is tax relief for people in those middle income, in that middle income territory?
I would love to see tax relief for all Arkansans, but I think we have to do it responsibly, and we are working on our own ideas. We do recognize that Republicans on the House committee do have a supermajority. It's 15-5. But when you get to the House floor, it is still just 51-49. And historically, the Speaker doesn't vote. That's not to say he won't. But it's not the majority that they thought they were going to have weeks before the election or even the day of the election. And same goes in the Senate. I still think you're going to see common sense and level-headed, cool heads prevail.
Do you think some of that is because the governor does have the ability to veto some of that, which would cause the legislature to have to override his veto, which they have the numbers to do?
I mean, it's a simple majority. You need 51 votes in the House and just 18 votes in the Senate to override a veto. I don't think it's necessarily a given. I have no insight as to whether or not the governor is willing and ready to veto something. I do think that if he did, it's not necessarily a slam dunk that we would override it. I do think the governor vetoing a piece of legislation would give some people pause, but we'll see.
You mentioned ethics earlier. Give me an example beyond ethics of one thing where you really see consensus between Republicans and Democrats where you think you will be working together on a major, significant accomplishment, maybe Medicaid.
I think Medicaid will be the significant achievement of this session. It is clearly the dominant topic, both in terms of the shortfall, but the expansion of Medicaid. I know that the chances are not necessarily great at this point, but I do think it's something that the more we learn about, the more we hear about the positive economic impact of extending the program, the more we hear about the dire consequences of not extending the program, the more people seem to be willing to talk, whereas months ago, you couldn't even get a conversation going. So I really do believe by the time we get near the end of session, there's a chance that we can get that done.
What do you see as a line in the sand where you can tell right now with about 100% accuracy, Democrats are going to side right here on this issue, Republicans are going to side right here on this issue, and we're just going to have to duke this one out?
I'm sure there are some issues like that out there right now, but I genuinely, I can't think of one at the moment. Most issues out there right now sort of have supporters on both sides, and I think Speaker Carter has made it clear that he really wants to see consensus from both parties. I genuinely want both parties, where we can, to work together. I would like to see the public's opinion of lawmakers go up, and I think that one of the best ways we can do that is to work together, have honest, open debate, dispense with some of the theatrics that we've seen in the past, and actually come up with a positive solution.
So you don't see voter ID or charter schools or school vouchers or any of those hot button issues, maybe even some of the gun or abortion bills? You don't see any of those?
Those will definitely be some serious fights. I don't necessarily see them as being exclusively partisan. I mean, you've got Democrats who would maybe like to see some more sensible approach to gun laws, but you have some for whom it's a non-starter. Same with some of the reproductive rights bills. Voter ID, I think, will be a pretty major issue. Charter schools, too, because you start talking about charter schools, those tend to threaten public schools in rural areas. And so I think you're going to see some pushback there, but I don't necessarily think of them as partisan issues.
Democrats have always been joked that they're a party where they're not really a party. You know, you've got all these different splinters, and they all come together under this umbrella. Do you think Republicans are seeing that now with their majorities now and the growth of their party? Do you kind of see, hey, do you even joke with them? Hey, welcome to the club. You're going through what we've been going through for a long time.
I've joked a little bit with Representative John Burris. I think we did see some fractures in their party just immediately after the election. I think by and large, those have healed. I think they are operating largely as one, but I do believe they have their own factions just as we have our own factions. I do believe now, I mean, obviously I'd rather have 51 than 49, but I do believe that the Democratic caucus so far this session is more united than it might have been 2 years ago.
All right, he's Representative Greg Leding. He's a Democrat from Fayetteville. He's the House Minority Leader, as he prefers to be recognized as the House Democratic Leader. Thank you for being with us. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
That's all for this Talk Business Arkansas update. You can catch more breaking business and political news at talkbusinessarkansas.com. I'm Roby Brock. We'll see you tomorrow.
Talk Business Arkansas is brought to you by the Arkansas Farm Bureau, the Arkansas State Chamber of Commerce and Associated Industries of Arkansas, the Electric Cooperatives of Arkansas, Noble Strategies, the Arkansas Healthcare Association, and Delta Trust and Bank.